Hey, I just wanted to do a video real quick on heat stroke and mental health. So, I had my first meeting with the office staff on Friday when I picked up the van, and I got to hear the story of the guy who I'm replacing, and his name was Mike as well. So they were kind of busting my chops. Like, I hope you don't lose it like the last guy. He was normal, and then all of a sudden he came in here one day and started talking like he was God. Da, da, da. And I made a joke, as I do. But in my head, I was kind of thinking, okay, these people aren't well trained. Or they are and they're uncaring. Because if you are in the field and you suffer a dramatic change in behavior that is observable, like you're acting one way the next, or you're acting one way one day and you're acting dramatically different the next, that's a sign that you are suffering potentially a stroke. And it is, quite frankly, not a joke, especially in our industry. So while I don't know the guy or know the specifics of his circumstance, in other words, he might have been out doing basic maintenance and been in relatively, safe environments as far as toxic exposure goes, or as far as, the radiological environment goes, perfectly comfortable environment, perfectly safe environment, and suffered a personal crisis, a divorce, a death in the family. He might have had a case of subclinical meningitis, or he might have suffered a workplace injury that was caused by environmental stress. And quite frankly, I don't know, but what I do know is that signs and symptoms of a stroke at work when you do this job, which is intrinsically dangerous, is quite frankly not a joke, and it's not a reason to make fun of a guy. You don't have to work in service too long before you get your first heat stroke. And I mean months to a year, depending on where in the country you work. Now, some places, like in Florida, they are particularly sensitive to this. And owners don't do what owners in New England do, because quite frankly, their staff would all be dead. And they know it. So they don't do attic installs that frequently, because they don't do service in attics that frequently. And when they do, it is very different than how we do it here. It looks like it was thrown in an attic, because it was thrown in an attic, because guys aren't going up there. And I just wanted to make a video real quick, because when you come down from fixing somebody's air conditioner, which is a service, which is an honorable job, and you're not educated, and the staff who's there to support you is not educated, and you are suffering from a heat stroke, you are in danger. The people around you are in danger. Everybody is in danger. So I think that, if you have a company that has more than, 20 employees or 30 employees, you're supposed to have somebody on staff who's trained in first aid, who's trained in CPR. And there are insurance reasons for that. And I think that it makes a lot of sense to have a staff who's trained to recognize the signs and symptoms of somebody who's suffering from heat stroke and get them help, or have protocols established so that a stroke can be ruled out before you literally ruin their life and make fun of them for it. I'm not saying that the guy wasn't crazy or that he was crazy. I just know from personal experience, when you come down from 120 or 130 degree attic or roof and you feel drunk, it's because you are basically drunk and you don't know it. You feel a little off. Your vision is a little blurry. You feel tired. But the people around you might be scared to death because in your mind you're a little tipsy and in their mind you're acting really freaking weird. And I don't think it's greed. I don't think it's people who are trying to kill people for $1. I think it's literally ignorance. And people have been miseducated or not educated at all on what mental health is and how to treat it based on the cause of the insult. The insult being chemical, radiological, or emotional. You know, if you are cooked, your brain is an organ and it will shut down to produce less heat. And while it's doing that, it's swelling. And all this is bad for your consciousness. And it just makes me nervous because these are the people that would drive me to the hospital. You know, these are the people. It's just, I want these red flags to be like, I want a cool company, but I also want professionalism. And, you know, I just came from a company where we were working out of a garage. You know, we were doing very dangerous work and oftentimes with no insurance or no workman's comp because we were working under the table. I don't want that. I want to work for a professional company with health insurance and with a support staff that's going to, you know, not burn me alive and then laugh at me. I don't think that's what they were doing. I think that the guy quit on his own free will and that maybe a lot of service techs get big egos. So that was probably it. That he got the holier than thou ego. And that happens. But so does heat stroke. So I thought they were really cool people, but that made me real nervous because I've worked with guys that were cool one minute and obviously suffering a heat stroke the next. And I didn't make fun of them, you know. I don't know how to treat it. I know I've had it happen to me at least 50 times. At least 50 times I've had a heat exposure that was significant enough where I woke up the next day with a real bad headache, with an understanding that I did damage to my brain the previous day through either exposure to gases or by being chronically dehydrated in an extremely hot environment. And I think that the entire industry should be educated on heat strokes, on recognizing the signs and symptoms of heat strokes, and on treating heat strokes, as opposed to insulting people who may or may not have done anything to deserve it. Quite frankly, if you get a heat stroke, you might be the least deserving of mockery because you might have been trying the hardest. You know, the guy who's on coffee break half the day never gets heat stroke, you know, and never gets frustrated either. So the guy who's working really hard gets frustrated and then gets heat stroke. and then gets made fun of. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my coworkers. I don't want that for my industry. So I do think that it's important to understand if someone acts, especially a grown adult who is, you know, rational. If you're rational one day, you're capable of being rational the next, unless something has changed. That's diagnostics, right? What changed to make this person irrational today? And if that change was, well, we worked him really hard yesterday and he was in an attic for a long period of time, then that should be a big red flag that we might need to get this person medical attention. Health insurance doesn't mean a lot if you're not able to recognize that you're unwell. And any brain damage, that's a possibility, a distinct possibility. That's like having a bad circuit board and trusting the internal diagnostics of that circuit board to tell you it's a bad circuit board. It quite frankly can't be trusted to give you accurate diagnostics. And you need an external circuit board, a diagnostician to look at it and come up with, okay, the thing that's supposed to be giving you diagnostics is the problem, your brain. And that's what we're going to attempt to fix, you know? So I'm real excited to go to work here. I'm loading up the truck. I'm doing my thing, trying to find all my papers to, get all my papers filled out. But yeah, I was thinking about it today, and I was like, man, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten heat stroke at work and had slurred speech, and I was lucky enough to be working with people that I could tell, like, I need to go home. I'm done. And for the most part, they were responsive to those needs. But I do think that there's a lot of ignorance out there, and people are real quick to throw a working man under the bus, even for just a joke. So I hope that's not the company climate. I hope they're more professional when it comes to brain damage than to just make fun of somebody. But I'm also happy I got the job. So hopefully he just broke up with his girlfriend and was going on a rant and rave after watching the, Wu-Tang Clan on TV and decided that he was not the Jizza, but he was you God, and decided to run with it. I don't know, but I do know heat stroke is a real problem in our industry, and it's something to watch out for.